Welcome back. All right, so we're going to talk about Pittsburgh. I talked about Philadelphia earlier. I also saw the question asked, am I holding back on the Islanders, waiting to see them announce moves? No. Honestly, and it's a question that gets asked every offseason, like when is the right time to do previews? The honest answer is we don't know when GMs are going to be done. There are times where the lineups aren't necessarily finalized till right before the start of the season, but one thing is, we don't see the huge seismic shifts take place usually between this point in the offseason and then the start of the regular season in October. So for the Pittsburgh Penguins, the story has been quite simple. Since 2018, this is a team that has not been able to get past the second round. Since 2019, they have not been able to get past the first round, and this is a problem. Now, for the Pittsburgh Penguins, the vote was not really split, but it does feel like there are some who are expecting this team to fall back a bit. And I understand why. 2017, 2018, they were 47, 29, and 6. They were 4th in goals for, 20th in goals against. But they make it to the second round. They lost against the Capitals, a team that wins the Stanley Cup. So it's not all bad because 2016 and 2017, they won the Stanley Cup. This is the 2016. There you go. 2018, 2019, they go 44, 26, and 12. They were 6th in goals for. They were 14th in goals against. Then they got taken out by the Islanders in the first round. And what was a shocker? 2019, 2020, they finished 40, 23, and 6. They were 13th in goals for, 10th in goals against. They lost the play-in round against the Montreal Canadiens. Carey Price stole that one. And that's where the question starts being asked about, well, now that Fleury's gone, and Murray was on his way out not long after, and just how is the goaltending in Pittsburgh? 2020, 2021, they finished 37, 16, and 3. They were 2nd in goals for. They were 13th in goals against, and Tristan Jarry was definitely the conversation after they got knocked out in the first round in 2021. This past season, 2021, 2022, they finished 46, 25, and 11. They were 11th in goals for and 5th in goals against. And again, they lose in the first round this time against the New York Rangers. So the question becomes one of, how does Pittsburgh get back to being a Stanley Cup champion? Can they? Are they getting too old? And I can understand both sides of the argument. Now, their best month this past season was December. They went 7-1. There was also a month they went 10-3-2. A worst month was April. They went 5-7-1. So they did back into the playoffs. And that is something to keep an eye on. Very often teams win the Stanley Cup. They're playing really well going into the playoffs. It just makes sense. So exits from this team. Evan Rodriguez, who is still UFA. I think if they had room, cap-wise, I think they would bring Rodriguez back. I do. I think Rodriguez had a very good year. It'll be tough for him to replicate that elsewhere. Might be part of the reason why he's still UFA. Mike Matheson, of course, was traded. John Marino was traded. So the blue line's been re-envisioned, and Brian Boyle, as far as I know, is still UFA at this point. Haven't heard anything about a retirement, so we'll see. New faces. Ty Smith's been added. Where he fits in with this blue line is going to be very interesting. If they're envisioning him to be top 6 right now, top 4 next year, that wouldn't necessarily surprise me. But Ty Smith, his development was definitely stalled in New Jersey. We'll see how it goes in Pittsburgh. Josh Archibald added as a free agent. Ryan Poehling added in the Matheson trade, as was Jeff Petrie. Petrie, a huge addition on the blue line, but we'll talk about the addition on the blue line as well as Jan Ruda. This is a team that continues to get older, and so we'll see this year whether or not they have it in them for that one final run at a Stanley Cup. I've also added Samuel Poulin. He is old enough to come up and play. I would think. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't get some games. I don't know how many he's going to get. Their tandem in net, Tristan Jarry and Casey DeSmith. Yep, DeSmith comes back, so we'll see how this ends up working out for them. The goaltending has been good. Jarry at points last year looked fantastic, but again, come playoff time, Jarry was hurt, and then DeSmith gets hurt. You end up having to go with Domingue, and we know how all that series ended up turning out for them. Down the middle. So I've done something a little bit different with down the middle in the top 4 for Pittsburgh, because this to me stands out. You got Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Jeff Carter, and Teddy Bluger down the middle. These are 4 excellent centers. Crosby's 35, Malkin's 36, Carter's 37. For Malkin, it is tough for him to stay healthy for a full season. Crosby has had that problem as well. Now they're both 35 or older. Carter, 35 and older as well. It'll be interesting to see how these guys hold up in terms of their ability to stay healthy, and how this ends up working out for Pittsburgh. And when you look at the defense, you have Brian Dumoulin, who's 30. You have Chris Letang, who's 35, coming off the best year of his career. Jan Ruda, 32 years of age, added as a free agent, as well as Jeff Petrie, brought in a trade with Montreal, who's 34. It's an old blue line. And so the question becomes one of, this is an older team, it's an older blue line. Is that going to cause them problems? And of course, with the older blue line, you'd also have injury issues potentially rising there. I'm going to be interested to see how it turns out. Their cap odds are currently listed as plus 1,800. Their cap space, as I've said, there's not any at this point. Otherwise, again, I think Rodriguez probably comes back as a bottom six forward. Now, the channel vote, kind of split. 10% of the Hockey Guy channel says they're first or second, 12% on Entertainment Guy. 66% on both channel have them third or fourth. So 2 out of every 3 people asked will tell you this team should be third or fourth, which is playoffs. It is highly unlikely we'll see 5 from the Atlantic and 3 from the Metro make the playoffs. So that would tell me, 76% on one channel, 78% on the other. Absolutely believe this team will be in the playoffs. 19% on Hockey Guy, 18% on Entertainment Guy have them 5th or 6th, and both channels agree on the 4% that have them 7th or 8th. I can't see that, but I'll say this, the Metro is tough to predict. 25,000 plus votes. Again, thank you guys for voting. I have posted the Atlantic Division polls now, so look for those. And 1,400 on the Entertainment Guy, where I have not posted those polls as of yet. So yeah, it's interesting that 3 out of every 4 people see them as top 4 material. 2 out of 3 think they're going to be third or fourth. And I agree. And yet I do have a little bit of trepidation because of the age of the team. And we've seen in the past where a team looks good and they look great, and then all of a sudden they just look old. And it does happen, right? It was a comment that got made about the New York Islanders this season, and all of a sudden a lot of players just kind of looked old. Now, breakthrough candidates, I tried. Now, breakthrough candidates has to be players who played last year, so it can't be just straight rookies. And it has to be a younger player. And looking at their lineup, I really couldn't find a young player that I said, he could absolutely jump up. I mean, I could have put Ty Smith, but he's not even projected to be in the top 4. In fact, depending on how you look at it, he might end up being a number 7 defenseman. We'll see who ends up playing where. But yeah, it's an interesting team in that they don't really have that young gun. They have traded a lot of first-round draft picks. They have been in that Stanley Cup window for a long time, and we know that teams that are in that Stanley Cup window will sacrifice that future for the present. And at some point, it's going to catch up with Pittsburgh. It's just a matter of whether this is the year, is next year the year, when's it going to happen? Their coach is still Mike Sullivan, and I think as long as they're winning at the rate that they are, I think Sullivan stays. Ron Hextall, the general manager, the guy who's made the decision to change up the blue line. We'll see whether Petrie and Ruda, in for Marino and Matheson, make the necessary improvement for a team that was 5th in goals against last year. So definitely making a change where sometimes you sometimes you overcorrect. I've talked about that before. We'll see how this turns out for them. So their leader in goals this season was Jake Gensel with 40. Gensel's a goal scorer, and especially when he's with Crosby. Crosby with 31 goals himself. The assist leader was Letang. 58 assists for Chris Letang, one of the best seasons he's ever had. Sidney Crosby with 53 assists. Crosby just keeps producing. Like I said, 35 years of age, had 84 points last year. And I'd be very surprised if he plays a full season if he doesn't end up with like 90 points. That would kind of surprise me if he doesn't. So their special teams, their power play went through its struggles. It ends up 20.2% at the end of the year. That's not bad considering how rough it was at points. Penalty kill, 84.4%. And when their power play was bad, people were pointing out, rightfully so, well, there's a lot of players missing. There absolutely were a lot of players missing. Now, expiring contracts. This is a team that could remake themselves this coming offseason, or maybe they move guys around the deadline. We'll see what they end up doing. Tristan Jarry is the headliner amongst the potential unrestricted free agents next summer. I would think they're going to sit down and talk to him. Jason Zucker, Teddy Bluger, one of my favorite players. Danton Heinen, who of course they just re-signed. Josh Archibald, who just came in. Brian Dumoulin, who is a key guy in the blue line. They want to keep him. Radim Zohorna, who has been mostly in the minors, but when he gets called up, he's looked pretty good. And Dustin Tokarski, who was just brought into Pittsburgh. He's now the number 3, playing the role of what Louis Domingue was last year for the team. So for Pittsburgh overall, I think the picture is it's going to be fascinating. I really think this is going to be a fascinating season for Pittsburgh because they could finish first. They could have a great year. Crosby, Malkin, Letang, you get the whole magic going again. Or like I said, they could suddenly look kind of old and a step behind. And in the Metro Division, that could lead to them being 5th or lower pretty quickly. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.